Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after Hector decided to make a deal with, well, uh, obviously I was not very happy about this, but I think that's more or less part of the whole story. Like, it's setting up what will eventually be something very bad happening because, Hector making a pact with the devil of Ernai, Run Sky. At at face value, I can see why he would do it. Because he is lonely. Because he is, you know, I can't mention it at the beginning of the video, but And so of course he's gonna make the pact with the demon that's promising him everything that Cadgan isn't. Because after you don't see your friend for 9 years and he doesn't put out, then obviously you have to move on to something worse. Instead of trying to build a friendship with your friend again, trying to reconnect with them instead of, hoping that they just suddenly pick up from where you left off after you left and didn't come back for 9 years. But technically speaking, he did have his reasons for not returning. But at the same time, he kind of just disappeared from Cadgan's life. So, I mean, realistically speaking, you can't really hold it against him for moving on. I mean, if somebody has gone for a couple of years with no, with no communication, nothing to say like, hey, I'm coming back, or I want to come back, but there's extraneous circumstances that are keeping me here where I live. But I really, really wish that I could return, then what do you expect? He's not gonna come back with like open arms and be like, oh yes, I've been missing you these 9 years, I've been waiting for you. And now that you're here, we can, just, continue from where we left off. Because, that's not very realistic. But again, I'm pretty sure after speaking with my friend, that's kind of, what they're going for. Like, they're setting up Hector for something, Well, I suppose Hector and Cadgan. But yeah, the fact that I have opinions on Hector and his choices should sort of tell you that this story is well written, at the very least. Anyways, so yeah. I don't know. I suppose that we will be dealing with the consequences of Hector's little, what he did. Anyway, so yeah, without further ado, let us continue Devil's Gambit. Also, before I continue, I do believe, because it's 2 chapters or 2 acts or whatever, however it's separated, I believe that the second one will be heavily edited. So yeah, expect me to cut out a lot for reasons, and you should know those reasons, okay? Act 2, Chapter 3, Family Dinner. A line named Cecilio de Oporto proposed last century this theory about demons. Even if academics still debate how souls come to be, their existence is generally agreed upon. A soul is, according to Karina, a being's perfect form, the ideal reached by ridding all 5 layers of their imbalances. Perhaps you could think of it as a blueprint for a healthy living being, or if you fancy a more romantic interpretation, a goal to strive for. Another thing that is agreed upon is that souls only exist as they do because they are part of the system called nature, or God, as Cecilio put it. I can almost see it, that line, pen in hand, in a crimson and velvet office of the royal bureaucracy, overlooking a plaza crowded with people watching as justice is met out. The chair he sits on, and the wide table as well, are made of hardwood with green leather cushioning, decorated with golden leaf. He looks up from his notebook, tapping the quill in his hand, wondering. What happens to the soul upon being acquired by a demon? What does it mean to turn your back on God and seek out outside power? But Cecilio wasn't a researcher. He was a natural philosopher. He wrote 17 books about the shapes of claws, nails, and teeth among the animal world, who dabbled in some political theory. He was a staunch defender of the monarchy's divine right to rule. Whether he became their friend because of his belief, or had those beliefs as a consequence of enjoying their benefits, that is another story. Is it any surprise that, with next to no evidence, he stated that the soul is destroyed upon forming a deal and used to create a new demon? It would then possess the original body, putting it to further its master's goals. This idea was at the core of its reasoning. It even had a name, the Postulado de Oporto. And from the central thought, he went on to write 17 more books about religion, inquisition, and politics. He later added that this didn't mean death, as dregs unfit for the creation of a new demon would remain immaterial and yet in perpetual suffering. I suppose even his benefactors found the prospect too grim, considering later, yet he suggested a soul could be restored and put to rest. All it took was purifying the resulting demon by burning it at the stake. What a relief. But this is all hogwash, isn't it? I don't feel any different, and I certainly don't think my idealized layers were perverted into a demon that now inhabits my body. I'll wager Cecilio never considered a demon might be more interested in his butt than in his soul. But it's all I can think about as I stare at my food. I'm hungry, yet my stomach tightens up at the thought of taking another bite. Cadgan clears his throat. His eyes reflect my worry back at me. You've barely touched your salami, Hector. He nudges a fruit bowl closer to me. Do you have a stomachache? Some fruit would do you good. You can have mine. Thank you. Do you want the rest of this? I offer the wolf the salami. Cadgan looks at it and then at me, somewhat bewildered. He takes it and then places it on the table. I force myself to keep eating. You might have second thoughts about your deal with the demon, as you well should, but you still need to eat, Hector. You need the energy. The people of Renai, your patients, rely on you. Oblong depends on you. But can they depend on someone who traded his soul to a demon? And for how long? They can depend on you for as long as you can brew an elixir and hold a scalpel, and that you can still do. You are still useful, and once you aren't, it won't matter anymore. If that's not enough, then do it for Cadgan. He's still your friend, and you care about him. So be good now, and don't let him know what you're feeling. Hey, Cadgan. What were you up to last night? You didn't stop by for dinner. Right. I passed by Teresa's place, and she held me until dinner. How was she? How odd that we didn't run into her during the festival, come to think of it. Cadgan takes a salami again and takes a chunky bite. His gaze trails off to the wall. Angry. She couldn't attend because she was recovering from giving birth. Her husband took the older kids out to play too, so she spent the night home, with only the baby and the priest for company. Ah, I suppose it makes some sense that he'd come out of the forest to help with childbirth. I meant the priest from the town square shrine. I could have sworn that shrine was abandoned. I haven't seen a single soul go in or out except for when they are preparing for the festival. Perhaps people here don't seek spiritual guidance often, or I'm too scatterbrained. Anyway, now she wants to do something to make up for the lost time, in her words. And what would that be? A birthday party. Ah, for who? For kids? The wolf lets out a hesitant sigh before he continues. No, for me. I hit my forehead with the palm of my hand. Right. I had forgotten. We never had the chance to celebrate it while at Leopoldino's mansion, so it completely slipped my mind. Our visits just didn't line up right. His face doesn't show it, but from how he talks, Cadgan isn't thrilled by the idea. I don't enjoy making a big deal of my birthday either, so I understand. The times Aunt Nora organized the party were just awkward. Never felt right to have so many unfamiliar faces or people I only interacted with casually, paying so much attention to me. I much preferred the years when she was too busy to do anything and would take me to eat something fancy in the city to make up for it later. I'm thinking of telling Cadgan of this one time that she took me to sample these exotic mushrooms when suddenly there is a slam followed by a clattering chair behind us. A brown wolf had suddenly stood up, hitting the table and pushing his chair back. He shouts at the man sitting across from him, a wolf with lighter fur, a few scars here and there, and a stern gaze to match. Rage contorts his body with every word, and each carries spit and not so subtle scent of alcohol. This again, I whisper. You know them? The big one is Alistair, and the one shouting is Fergus. They are. But Cadgan's words trail off when Alistair gets up and pushes his chest against Fergus. He looks down at the smaller wolf, uttering something that I don't catch. Fergus then flies into a frenzy. He's just about to pounce on the other man when Cadgan catches him by the shoulder and throws him back. I can't help but cover my mouth as he lands on his back and hits his head on a table leg. He's quick to get back up to his feet, however just a little wobblier than before. Cadgan? Shit. Here comes the Duke's bitch. Cadgan looks back at the taller wolf. Do you want to say that to my face? But he doesn't have time to worry about Alistair's provocation, not with Fergus watching, as if looking for an opening to attack. You know what? This is fine. I've been waiting to beat that smug expression off your face. Think that he can give orders now because he's got some lion armor? Try it. I'll leave you looking like they just dug you out of some ditch in the valley. The silence weighs over the entire tavern. All eyes are on their bared fangs, every ridge along their snout, and on Fergus's grasping hands. Everything is locked in a standoff that lasts a few breaths, yet feels like hours. That is until Fergus growls, lowering his shoulders and arms, as though he doesn't care anymore. Fine, whatever. It's not worth it. The Great Lake Games are a few months away. Do me a favor and spend that time training instead of getting drunk. The wolf snarls one last time before storming off. Alistair looks on, with a rage akin to sizzling oil on a pan, harmless if disturbed, yet spiteful enough to announce its presence. And it's all directed at Cadgan, not the departing wolf. What? Have more to say? Since you're so interested in the competition, why don't you join? Or will you do the same as every year, just stand aside and watch like you're better than us or something? I'll patrol the town, same as last year, because someone has to. Figures you'd give me that look. You don't care about anything. You could be so much more, an actual leader, not some placid watchman on the lion's payroll, pretending to look for devils for that inbred lunatic. Hell, you could get any partner you wanted. He grabs his own crotch and raises his voice. If you only had the balls. That's none of your business. This conversation is over. Alistair clicks his tongue and after scanning the tavern one more time, walks out. Cadgan watches him go and then returns to the table. Little by little, the murmurs of the other patrons replace the silence. Cadgan looks back at me, ears down. He looks pitiful. Sorry. What? What was that? It's the season. Everyone's on edge. And unless they let it out somehow, petty squabbles break out and turn into fights. Those two usually compete in the Great Lake Games. Most men do. But Alistair and Fergus have been taking it too far lately. They never got this bad before. Must be the stress from the expedition getting to them. But right before I can speak, Arwal approaches our table with teary expression. Oh, Cadgan, I can't thank you enough. I felt something was off when Fergus finished his drink and headed to Alistair's table. But I didn't think that it'd escalate so quickly. I'd rather you don't serve him beer again. Not until after the competition is over, at least. Of course, of course. Arwon. The dragon freezes in place. Is it the tone of my voice or the fact that I cut in at all that did it? I don't care. We were in the middle of something. Ah, of course, friend. Apologies. With a shaky bow, the dragon retreats behind the bar. Cadgan gives me a curious look. What's wrong? What indeed? I'm still processing what just happened, so I'm not sure where to start. I scratch my head and take a deep breath. What was their problem? Aren't you bothered? Cadgan's ears flickers, and he tilts his head. One moment they are at each other's throat, but the next they forget all about that and turn on you. Well, I did get in the way. I know, but they weren't angry at you just because of that, right? And it was so sudden. I shake my head, having trouble finding the right words. They began throwing all this resentment and expectations your way. It was so weird. They didn't mean what they said. They were just excited and saying anything to get a rise out of me, and Fergus was bluffing. He's all bark and no bite around me. I guess it might bother them that the Duke appointed me peacekeeper. I'm not satisfied with that answer, but Cadgan seems genuinely lost, so I drop the subject. Maybe I'm being overprotective. It's such a shame. This morning had been going so much better than the last until now. Once we quiet down, Arwol approaches us again to apologize for the previous interruption and to reward Cadgan with an extra salami, as well as to make some chit-chat. Friend, are you heading to the shrine today? I'm planning to after work, yes. Though I suppose it's a bit late now that I've accepted Ronskai's deal. But is it Hector? The demon has sunk his claws into you. Learning more about him is more important than ever. The shrine? Yes, the one in the forest. What are you going there for? I'm curious about Renai's history is all. Now that you mention it, I've been meaning to go there. Got a delivery to do? Cadgan looks down at the salami Arwell brought him. He grinds his teeth, as if searching for something inside his mouth. For just a moment, he looks more like a pup than the grown man he is. I was meaning to spend some time there, with the priest. Didn't Cadgan mention that he used to work at the shrine? You can join me if you want. His face goes rigid again. For once, I can tell that he's forcing it. Yes, I can. I'll pass by your place this afternoon. Sounds good? The wolf nods and goes back to finishing his food. I need to hurry too. It's almost time to go. By the time that I pass by Cadgan's shack, a dusk closer to blue than orange rolls over the town, and the forest's birds are singing their last songs for the day. I'm worried that I might be too late, but Cadgan reassures me that it's all right. He's carrying a big cloth sack, smelling faintly of good, freshly butchered meat. Is that an offering to the priest? No, I was thinking of having dinner at the shrine tonight. My cooking doesn't measure up to Arwol's. But you don't mind, right? I'm curious about your cooking now, actually. We walk to the path that leads to the Duke's mansion, and from there we take a turn right into the woods. Cadgan looks distracted on the way to the shrine. Perhaps he's thinking about the priest or planning our dinner. I'm not any better. There's too much bouncing around in my head. The walk gives me a bit of peace from all the doubt and uncertainty. My senses, one by one, rise to the front. From the west rings the last of the day's bird songs, becoming fainter with the growing shadows. The moon has already revealed itself, a soft pink thing hanging above the tree line. As I breathe in, I notice the river's scent, the flowing waters, the damp soil and wet clay, the soft earth compacting slightly beneath my feet. I even catch the distant and faded scent of the valley. We've been walking for a good 10 minutes, and just as I notice a building beyond the trees to the right, I catch Cadgan stopping dead on his tracks and staring in the opposite direction, at a tree with two swings on it. There's nothing remarkable about it. One is big enough for a child or a young teen, while the other is sturdier, wider for an adult. Cadgan's ears fold back. Then his gaze goes back up to the branches hanging over the path ahead. With the dimming light, it takes me a moment, but I just barely make out what he is looking at. Frogs. A dozen or so carved wood frogs perched above, looking down at us with little smiles, green moss growing on top of them. There's something that you should know. Up ahead, just before the path bends, right at the building, I catch two knee-high wood statues, a pair of wolves watching us. Where one ends, the other begins, as if they have been carved from the same block of wood to fit together. One is slender and with a positively radiant smile reaching up to her eyes. She's clasping her hands over her chest, fingers tensed as if about to burst, an open-hearted hug. The other statue's arms reach back to the woman's waist, hugging her close. She's raising her free arm, waving at us. He too smiles, but with pride. They both seem at peace. Unlike my father, unlike Cadgan and I. He looks at the swing, the frogs, the statues waiting for us, and that's where his gaze remains. The priest is called Eirnin, and He croaks, as if he was struggling to breathe again. After a moment, he regains his composure, and with his voice a tad more monotone, enunciating every word carefully, he continues. He took me in after I left the Duke's mansion. He protected and cared for me. His hands spasm, fingers curl, when no one else would. This is where I grew up after you left, and Eirnin means a lot to me. Do you understand, Hector? He relaxes. The shadow of that coughing fit fades. The sun shines its last rays with renewed vigor. Eirnin means a lot to me. Do you understand? I nod as the birdsongs far in the distance stop. The sun drops below the tree line and the sky darkens. Is something wrong? It's... His voice loses the monotone edge. It's odd having you here is all. Cadgan points to the old stone building ahead. Let's go. That's the place. The shrine is a stone tower reminiscent of the ruins outside the valley, except for the fact that it's mostly intact. Wooden shutters seal the windows. Charms made of feathers, sticks, and strings hang from some of them. There is a half circle of stones in front of the shrine, clutching what I can only assume used to be a woven sigil, before the wind and the forest's residents trampled all over it. There is a shallow hole in its center. Not too far away is a much smaller shack. It looks almost out of place. And all around the area, there are more wood carvings of wolves, but none are so big or detailed as the two that we first saw. Cadgan goes to the door, careful to not step on the stones, and knock 3 times with his heavy mitt of a hand. After a minute, he knocks again, 3 times in the same cadence. Could he have gone out? He must be taking a nap. After a moment, Cadgan twists the knob and the door opens. He is about to walk in when suddenly he meets resistance from the other side and notices an eye peeking at us from the gap. Cadgan, little snowball, my child. The darkness of my eye. It focuses on me next, and I'm taken aback. And this one, a badger. He's Hector. Remember? I told you about him. Right, that you did. More times than the valley has grown teeth. The valley what? Don't worry about it. Well, what are you waiting for? Come in. We walk into a dark room with a stinking smell of burned herbs. Is it a bad time? Did we catch you in the middle of your meditation? It's never a bad time for you, my child. My prayers can wait. As the priest goes around opening the windows, light fills a chamber and reveals here and there shelves with incense, flowers, organized in flasks by color, and tools such as knives, needles, and shovels. There is a work table with bowls, pestles, and some rudimentary tools that I can't identify. I don't see any brewing equipment though. On the opposite side of the door, there is an altar with burning incense, and on the wall behind it, painted in red, is that symbol again, the 2 planets. Other than that, there is a small table in the center, the kind that you need to sit down on the floor to use, 2 bedrolls underneath it, a stack of books in one corner, a spear and some other stuff resting against the same wall, a pot and some firewood. The priest clears his throat and sits down at the table. Cadgan signals me to join him first. I'm grateful that Cadgan is here with me today, because the old wolf's glare hasn't grown any less intense. In fact, it only feels as if he's dissecting me more and more. Does he have some issue with me? Hector, this is Eirnin. Like I told you, he took me in after I returned from the Duke's mansion 9 years ago. I swallow my apprehension and smile. His eyes narrow yet more. His lips jerk back, almost showing his fangs. Nice to meet you, sir. What should I call you? Eirnin's fine. So, you're Hector, the boy from 9 years ago. Shorter than I imagined. He squints, searching for something. Much more gelatinous, too. Did the walk here tire you out? Do you need water? Ouch. Thank you, but no. You look sort of like Barry. He's got just a little less belly than you, but a lot more stamina. Did you hear my child? He's joining the games this year. He's a beast, that boy. I heard, yes. I hear he's hoping to get himself a sweetheart. This is getting awkward. Didn't you come here to ask him about the valley, Hector? Oh, but is it a good idea to bring it up next to Cadgan? Why wouldn't it be? Don't overthink it. Just... So, what you doing now? You're a doctor, right? Yes, indeed. Another moth drawn to the Duke's skull, then. Typical. Eirnin shakes his head. You know, I have the feeling that you don't like me. He can be difficult. Forgive him. Cadgan gives the priest a meaningful look. And sir, you play nice too, alright? Cadgan lays a hand on the priest's forearm and looks him in the eye. Eirnin ever so slightly softens as he peers into Cadgan's gaze. He stares at something. There's still stubbornness in him, but he relents. If that is what you wish, my son. But I ought to ask, what brings you here, Badger? Did Cadgan want to introduce us? No, I just wanted to ask you about the town's history, actually. It just so happened that Cadgan was meaning to come here today as well. Ah, well, the tales about demons and whatnot caught your attention, haven't they? Just go ask the other locals. I doubt that they've run out of stories to tell you. I want the actual history, not the hearsay. Badger and Renai, there is no distinction between history and this so-called hearsay. We worship demons, and through fearsome rites, summon them to our world. They once walked among us, and to them we paid great tribute. They were most honored among our kind. We don't keep our past a secret. We are what we are, and always were. But there are stories not even the townsfolk remember. They speak more of fairy tales in the history of Renai. The priest scoffs. You're asking a lot. He won't tell a soul, right, Hector? Right. Eirnin taps at the table with 4 fingers, making a face as though he's chewing on something hard. He's not convinced. Cadgan lowers his ears. I don't quite know how to read his expression, but it's almost as if he's holding back a whimper. I feel lost as well. There is a history between them that I am not aware of. I reckon that's going through Cadgan's mind now. Sir, Dad, I trust them. We can trust them. Eirnin's ears, well, just one, perks when Cadgan calls him Dad. His fingers relax, and after a dramatic delay, a smile forms in the corner of his mouth. You've always said he's more obedient than a pup, my son. Hope your leash is still as tight as ever. I whisper to Cadgan. What else did you tell him? That we used to read together, and you were a resourceful guy and... He looks away, closes his eyes for a second, brow furrowed, as though digging for a memory. I told him that I punched you, but that only made you want to hang out more. That you had a good sense of smell. That you made a nice pillow. You painted him an interesting picture, I see. Eirnin grunts as he gets up and then raises his arms high up, every vertebrae of his spine snapping back into place. Yes, I've been hearing all about you and your nose for 9 years. Enough about that. What do you have there, my child? Meat? Did you hunt it? Ah, my hunting skills are rusty, so I got it from the market. That's so. I ought to take you into the forest one of these days then. Can't have my former apprentice forget how to live off the earth. He walks to the wall with the spear and pulls out an old, unstrung bow. Badger, see this? This bow. The wood comes from a tree of the Eye Valley, which I felled with an axe of my making. I carved it into this shape, as taught by my father. The string I wove with the tree's same fibers, adding strands of my fur for good luck and safety. This is my son's training bow. With it, I taught Cadgan to hunt, and when he outgrew it, I made him another. Cadgan shrinks. I swear that I've never seen him so small, not even as a child. It's a great bow. Thank you, Dad. It is a bow of the valley. It will never fail a skilled hunter such as yourself. That limber wood and its string carry the strength of demons. We must hunt again, my child. It will do you much good. Anyway, I'll go pick up some texts for you, Badger. Little Snowball, help yourself to the berries and spices. They are in the usual place. Thank you. Wanna help in setting up the pot in the fire, Hector? I should start cooking before it gets dark. Sure. I like to think that I'm mostly humble, whether it is applying an ointment, stitching up wounds, fixing up bones, or brewing complex elixirs. Each work is well done. Each life saved is followed by a sense of accomplishment. And that is all that I need. If it wasn't because gold is as vital as one's blood, it'd be all I take, too. I never seek gratitude or appreciation. It's nice when I get them, but that's all. Still, if there's an aspect of herbalism that I believe is often overlooked, it'd be how much precision it takes. For instance, the venom that I treated yesterday. Even if you have the correct ingredients in the proper amounts, it means a little if you fumble the brewing process. How hot does a flame have to be? For how long do you have to let it brew? Some elixirs are ineffective once they go cold and vice versa. When using many ingredients, mixing them in the incorrect temperature can lead to undesirable reactions. And not to mention the further adjustments might be needed depending on the patient's species. I believe that I once told Cadgan that brewing elixirs is like cooking, but more complex. Seeing him sit by the pot getting ready to cook has me questioning that statement. Cadgan, are those measuring cups? That's right. Do you like them? He holds them out to me as though they are a piece of manual art he's proud of. Eirnin made them for me a few years back when he taught me how to cook. I use this one to measure the spices, and this one is for liquids. I get a feeling of how much meat I'm preparing and make just the right amount of sauce. Ah, and what's that? He puts the cups down to show me the other thing. A sand clock. Nifty, eh? We wouldn't want the meat to get charred. Maybe I should have pushed harder for him to get into herbalism when he was young. Hell, maybe he'd start making elixirs on his own if you locked him up in a room with a brewer and a recipe book. Looking at it the other way around, I wonder if I'd enjoy cooking if I actually put effort into it. The most I do is cook the meat as it is, or boil mushrooms. But there's no time to ponder the thought, not when Eirnin is calling me. I go around the shrine until I see him standing in the shack's door. Help me move these books, will ya? This should be enough to get you started. I'll be with Cadgan. Only call me if you have an actual question. Here I thought you were going to tell me about the valley. I could, but it's better if you see it for yourself, if you're so interested. Now, me and my boy will have some catching up to do. Actually, before you go, I know you took Cadgan in after he returned to Renai. Um, but do you happen to be relatives? You two seem very close, in a more personal way than a teacher and his former student. We don't share blood, no. But I was the midwife when he was born, my first stain with his mother's blood. From his first scream, I was there. I raise my brows slightly. Male midwives aren't anything unheard of, but they are still quite rare. It's also quite Renanian. I don't know. Thank you for looking after him all this time. I had been worried about him returning to Renai all alone, but it turns out that he had some family left after all. The old wolf scoffs before leaving. The leather covers are plain, identical. There are some signs of wear, but they don't look that old. The slightest hint of shimmerwell fragrance clings to them. Curious, those flowers don't grow in Renai. Eirnin must have brought them from somewhere else to kill any bugs that get into the shack. No point in meandering further. I pick a random book from the collection and open it. Unknown Scout, Unknown Kingdom, 600 years ago, estimated. After the village faded behind us, we kept walking until we saw it, just beyond the forest, a chasm hiding among the mountains, more like a basin than a valley. From where we stood at the edge of the forest, we saw towering structures rising above the already towering trees. The local savages call this place the Eye Valley, a cursed land, fabled to house demons. In His Majesty's name, we shall exterminate them. But first, we must find footing in this strange land. We will secure a source of food and water post-haste. We'd settled near a stream flowing down from the mountains. Walking downstream might be the easiest path to the valley's depths. The primary concern thus far is that this might leave us in a predictable position for the demons. Let them come, I say. Whatever underhanded tactics and evil magic they have in store, my steel will cut down. This morning we found a most peculiar sight. A horned creature with horns like I had never seen before, eating those purple vines that we found here and there. It stared back at us with its many eyes. Naturally, we thought it was a demon in disguise, or at least some sort of familiar, so we cornered and killed it. However, it defended itself using only its legs and horns, and it bled like any other beast. What corrupted this creature into such an unnatural shape? How could it truly have been alive? Ever since our encounter with the twisted beast, the group has grown restless. There are concerns regarding its condition and how it came to be. My outlook is that it must have been the work of the demons, a hex of sorts, but others are concerned that it might have to do with the earth itself. After all, those purple vines and all the fruit that we eat grows in the same soil. Are we at risk of being similarly twisted? Perhaps this belief is the demon's trap. We must hold a strategy meeting tonight to figure out the next step and to appease those losing their nerve. Evil is doubtlessly encroaching us. We failed. Half the group is gone. They came in the night, demons with red eyes, many eyes and hooves. They wielded strange magic and distorted the surroundings to their likings. We turned against each other. We were overwhelmed, crushed. I don't know where things went wrong. Was it when we first found the beast? Or was it something further back that I am not aware of? I just don't understand. Part of me tells me that we never had a chance. Yes, I might think that after witnessing that overwhelming power, but I can't let it end like this. As soon as I can, I'll return to His Majesty and beg for another chance. This cursed land won't crush my spirit. A scout's diary, huh? What year is this from? Some details in the diary seem incongruent with what I know, but what grabs my attention is the mention of multiple demons. Are there more of Runskai's kind, then? Hard to say. The Eye Valley was a much different place back then, assuming this account is accurate. Even so, this is fascinating. Every few entries there is a new name, kingdom and year, or lack thereof, alongside a change in the writing style, though the story is always similar. A group of foreign soldiers tasked with conquering the valley by a royal figure, only to meet a terrible fate at the demon's claws. These must have been written by the participant of many different expeditions. In some tales, the demons turn the valley into a labyrinth, making them go in circles to the point of exhaustion before taking them out one by one. Others are more epic, describing demonic shamans decimating their numbers with magic. Interesting. There must be diaries that Ranai's priests copied across the ages. They really kept a close eye on everything that's happened in the valley. I skip ahead until I find a diary dating around 2 centuries back, when the Dragon Kingdom still held this land. Day 4. Dawn. Remaining troops and supplies all accounted for. We're packing up and leaving camp at half before quarter. Fourth before quarter. A soldier fell into a large pit hiding behind vegetation. We can't see the bottom. Chances of rescue are minimal. Scouts claim to haven't seen them when going ahead. Disciplinary measures will be decided after dusk. Quarter. Rescue deemed impossible. We march on. Half before prime, we've stumbled upon what appears to be a dilapidated forest surrounded by more of those massive pillars. The haze leaf has made it difficult to find a way around. However, the fortress's gates carry the familiar symbol. We suspect that we can open them with a relic. Seeing as the tremors were originating from this direction, we're taking a break to strategize. We'll depart by prime. Most of the diary is missing. Curious, but this sounds more like the valley that I know. I skimmed the last few entries, checking only the kingdoms. There's no mention of the Lion Kingdom. I suppose it's natural considering the demons were thought long gone by the time that they conquered Ranai. I'll check the other books now. This second one is much thicker, by somebody named Shay, a wolf going from how they talk about Ranai. The volume seems like a compilation of creatures endemic to the Eye Valley. I see a couple of familiar words here and there. Although scarce, there is some information about demons. One word catches my eye as I go through the index. Let's see. Demon Shamans, page 62. This is one of the most dangerous demons one can find. Like other demons of a similar rank, they possess hooves and red eyes. They have sigils of unknown origin on their skin. They also have a liking of wearing horns and fur to cover their heads. They also seem to possess shape-shifting abilities, being able to present themselves as whatever gender they desire. If you stumble upon one, it'll make you boil from the inside out until your eyeballs melt away. Just run. Reading this description, Eirnin immediately comes to mind, mostly because of the details of the sigils. Perhaps he drew inspiration from these shamans for his attire? That track with the dancers dressing up similarly to Ronskai, are those based on a specific demon too? This one... Night Stalker? Night Stalkers are the closest to the stereotypical demon. It will select its prey and invade their dreams, tempting them into a deal. After this, the stalker will gain control of its prey and make it turn against their allies in the most unexpected moment. They are cunning, not so little fiends. They only manifest at night, not as dangerous in battle as the shaman, but don't underestimate it. This sounds like Ronskai, doesn't it? Let's see, there are some illustrations on the next page. My eyes immediately go wide. At the top, artistic depiction of Night Stalker temptation is written in a very matter-of-fact manner. Immediately below are multiple depictions of the aforementioned demons, fucking wolves of all genders, sizes, and shapes in the multiple positions. It leaves little to the imagination. Every line, every stroke drawn with almost as much care as the demons are pouring into their so-called victims. It goes on for pages, alongside what looks like instructions for a ritual. I'm too distracted to pay attention to that, though. Really. And then I see it. They are blatantly drawn on top of the page as a much rougher style. A demon fucking what at first I thought was a fat wolf, but upon closer examination, I realize what it actually is and my jaw drops. Under it is a message. Tonight, Badger. When did this even happen? Did Ronskai sneak into the shack and add this to the book as soon as he was done with me last night? It's not surprising that he knows that I'd come here, but to think that he'd figure that I'd be reading this book, on top of being terrifying, I just know that he'll make me look like a fool tonight over it. And then... And just as the thoughts rush through my head, I feel blood rushing to my crotch. Shit. Thankfully, by the time Cadgan and Eirnin come in with the food, I've calmed myself down. The priest looks at the pile of books on the table. Did you read after all? Don't tell me that you fell asleep. I did read. I was gathering my thoughts is all. Did you at least check Shay's compendium? My heart almost jumps out of my throat as the old man picks up the book and starts flipping through it. What if he finds Runskai's drawing? God, he might think that I drew it. Oh, yes, I did. Absolutely. It was fascinating. Fascinating. Now let's eat. I'm starving. Eirnin shoots me a questioning look before closing the book and sitting down. None of us linger on the subject. Cadgan's food commands us with an iron fist. What hits me first is that there is plenty, even if Arwell's food is good, if not great. He always portions it. There's just enough to push you through another day of hard work, but never enough to truly fill you. Not the case here. Whatever cut of meat Cadgan brought was enough for a family of 4, maybe 5. I wouldn't say Cadgan's cooking is better than Arwell's, but I prefer it nonetheless. There is something there that I can't quite put my finger on. Did you hear, Cadgan? Old Adam finally passed away. Good for him. He looked like a stick in his last few days. As I always say, I hope I die quick and easy. Maybe I'll get crushed during a landslide, or I'll fall into a hole in the Eye Valley. Whatever happens, I don't want to wither away. Oh, don't talk like that, sir. Your mind is sharp and your body's sturdy. You have many years ahead. Besides, you know that there aren't landslides here. That's a lie. Remember the caravan that got crushed by a boulder in the valley? The priest breaks into laughter that promptly turns into coughing. He takes a single large gulp of water before raising an eyebrow my way. What's with the face? I almost choked trying to swallow the meat. my what? Do you want more water, Hector? No, thank you. By the way, sir, didn't you say Adam's children have been visiting as of late? Well, his daughter has been. Adam didn't approve of her and her husband sleeping around with other people. Came here to talk my ear off about it every week. Terrible, let me tell you. Then one day, she showed up in tears saying her daddy died. Her daddy died. Had to hold her until the tears ran out. He drags a hand along his face, exposing the red under his eyes. Ever since they opened the confessionary in town shrine, people got this idea that they can come here to yap about their problems. That's because you're kind, sir. Kiss my ass, Snowball. If it was only frustrated wives, then it maybe wouldn't be so bad. But I've been getting all kinds of folks, you know. The other day, there was this guy. He had a crazy look. He was ready to kill. He calmed down after I let him borrow my pipe, and my good herbs, though. A good smoke can solve many ills. Hector? It's not what I usually do, but it can be a legitimate medicine. God, loosen up a little. I'm asking if you've ever tried it. You work with herbs. I bet you must have gotten curious a few times. Well, I've done it recreationally. I heard some herbs can help you relax when you smoke them. Body and mind let loose, and all the walls keeping the unseen, undesirable, and forgotten things fall down. The days of the plague, the piles of dead corpses outside the town limits, Dad delirious and feverish, wasting away. And the day that followed, and all others since, hoping that it'd be the last, and cursing the life anew at every new dawn. Reliving it all, unable to sleep, curled on the bed with my back to the wall, holding my head between my legs. Breathe in, Hector. It'll pass. Don't try this again. It didn't really work out in my case. If that's what you like, you should try using haze leaf sometime. It'll gently carry you to dreamland. Haze leaf? Are you pulling my leg? There's a process to it. The haze leaf has to be grown in the right place. The leaves must be harvested at a specific time of the day. Then it has to be dried and aged. If prepared correctly, it has a mild hallucinogenic effect. Otherwise, it does very little. It can be therapeutic, and there are a few old rituals that use it. Cadgan speaks from experience. Is smoking much more common than I thought? It helps with the pain, as well. Eirnin taps his forehead, a dark grin cutting through his mouth. Cadgan looks away. More so if used as part of the rituals. The old wisdom is no less important than the aged herb. Snowball forgot to mention it's a shaman that must prepare the ceremony, and thus determine how the haze leaf will be used. Hector is a doctor, sir. Shamanistic rituals are a bit beyond his experience. Doctors don't know shit. They care more about how long a bone is than the person that it came from. Manuelino, he and his people don't care about the people they treat. They're just addicted to the high of the chase, of figuring out a disease, stomping it out, and being praised. I bet that's the only thing that gets his shriveled dick to bloat, the euphoria of having someone's life in his hands, knowing that he can twist their neck. Cadgan looks at me, a look of concern plastered on his face. Sir, you're going too far. No, it's fine. I take a sip of water, enough to moisten my throat. But you're mistaken. I don't think the Duke cares a great deal for the life of whoever's under his scalpel. Pray tell, what does he care about then? Before I arrived, my impression was that he was an academic, that his interest lied in pursuing knowledge. He saved many lives, but he thought of those as means to an end. After meeting him, he has big ambitions, wanting to finish Karina's work, but it almost feels like there's this desperation hiding underneath. It's not just knowledge that he wants, but the recognition that comes with that massive achievement, to be seen as the same level or perhaps above his father. So Manolino wants his own medical revolution, and he's trying to follow his putrid blister of a father's steps to get there? Tough luck. I only wish that he gets swallowed by the valley himself instead of making us pay the price of his stupidity. I can't see it ending well regardless. He thinks himself untouchable, but these situations never end well. Yes, they end with blades, men being made into cattle, and maybe a head or four on a pike. Eirnin easily catches the meaning and nods. We see eye to eye there, Badger. It's a shame, because there's so much to learn here in Renai. Just yesterday I encountered dusk viper venom for the first time. I had to brew an elixir with only notes left behind by doctors of past generations as a reference. Who knows what else is out there in the valley that we don't have a proper treatment for yet, if the Duke wasn't so absorbed in his legacy. Wait, dusk viper? I hear he used that journal that we donated to the hospital last year, sir. So it came from here? I should have figured. Interesting. You came up with the cure? I wouldn't say I came up with it. I did notice some mistakes in the brewing technique used before, and I fixed those. I'm confident that I can improve the formula. It won't be too hard. But mainly, I'm worried about how the poisoning manifests. From what I gather, it can manifest in two ways, and the patient that I treated showed the milder variety. I don't know how I'd go about treating the other kind. Cadigan turns to the priest with a small smile. See, Dad, a very resourceful badger. Eirnin's gaze is hard to read. A part of me expects skepticism. Despite my friendship with Cadigan in a medical affair, why should he trust this doctor on the lion's payroll? But that's not what I see in his eyes. That sharp gaze returns, picking me apart, though in an unfamiliar way. It's not that he doesn't believe me. No, he has the experience to know that I'm serious, and yet he still seems on guard. Would you mind sharing that formula, Badger? Sure, if you don't mind it being a preliminary version. Against dust viper venom, even an imperfect solution is to be respected. He pulls a piece of parchment from a shelf and a quill from his loincloth, and pushes his dishes aside to write it down. The formula is still fresh enough in my mind. Most of my attention, in truth, goes to describing the brewing procedure as clearly as I can. Eirnin lacks experience with brewing equipment. He's never made an elixir before, but he seems to be aware of his own shortcomings. Don't worry, there are others that can brew this. If there aren't, then I'll learn to do it myself. But even if I couldn't, this is knowledge that we, the people of Renai, should possess. Thank you, Badger. You're welcome, sir. I shift a little in place, smiling. I don't do this because I want recognition, but damn it, I'm allowed to feel good that my work made Cadganstad respect me a little. I'm happy to help. Anyone really, but Renai in particular. I have such fond memories of this place. Once again, Eirin's gaze picks me apart. Learning the formula did not soften him much, but at least his fangs aren't showing anymore. It's time that I answer your questions. Were there any? Oh, yes, I'd forgotten. So the compendium mentioned these shaman demons, as did the diaries. I thought that there was an interesting choice of words. Shamans draw power from nature, and that goes hand in hand with the worship of God. It would not make sense for a demon, a being in opposition to God, to gain power from nature. If they did so, by definition, they wouldn't be demons. I wonder why that name then. Eirnin's face doesn't change in the slightest, and yet there is a smallest shift in his demeanor, this sudden stiffness. Whatever he's thinking, he's not letting it show. He looks up to Cadgan. We can tell him. Eirnin sighs and turns back to me. You're a sharp one. Yes, that is strange, isn't it? In fact, that is the one reason that I don't show those texts to just anyone. Your lucky Cadgan vouched for you. Oh? Well, the people of Vernaya are very open about the, let's say, demonic heritage of our land. Some tales are too taboo even for us, Hector. He takes a sip of his water. Tales that are better off buried in the depths, forgotten. And yet you're telling me this detail betrays such a tale? Aye. It's the first step down a dark path. Last time Manuelino called the Inquisition, took care in hiding these books from them. I was worried that they destroy them, you see. It's a tiny detail, one most people won't pay any mind to, or will write off as a strange choice for a name, but it's meaningful enough that there was a risk. But what does it mean? The two wolves exchange another meaningful glance. Eirnin pushes his empty plate away and leans back, using one arm for support. Do you know what a dark god is? Or maybe you've heard the term hidden god instead. Dark god? Let me warn you, this is the kind of thing that you can't tell the lions or anybody about, but especially the lions. If it reaches the wrong ears, either the Duke or the Inquisition will skin you alive and hang your bloody corpse by the town's entrance, whoever gets you first. Still want to hear it? It's too late to worry about crossing a line, isn't it? I nod. Badger, let me ask you, what is this really? And as he asks this, he opens his arms, as though calling attention to our surroundings. Not the shrine's walls, the town, the colony beyond, or even the continent, but divinity, the miracles of nature all around us. Nature. Right, the earth beneath our feet and the air we breathe, every stone that came to be a part of the house or a fortress, every gentle kiss and every bloodshed and plunder, every little defect in our bodies, every single pleasure too, it all is of nature's design. No, it is nature making itself manifest. What do we struggle for if not for the love of life? Even our bodies, some debate this, but if you're a man of the earth, then you know I'm telling the truth when I say nature is a living, breathing being. A system. The words come out of their own accord. Eirnin nods. Exactly. The mother of all systems. God. And in it, we are nothing but the miserable little cubs clinging for sustenance, willing to kick our own siblings down if it means that we can get just a little more. I ask you now, how do demons fit in this? From what I've heard, I guess they are an illness? Almost, but no. An illness implies an imbalance. But where does that imbalance come from, when nature is perfect? No, a demon is something from outside the reach of nature itself. It is a venom that has found its way to our world, and whose presence corrodes it. And a dark god is a snake that produces it. Their names, shapes, and all else has long been forgotten, buried who knows where by the Inquisition. Hence the name, a god in the dark, a hidden deity. This is hard to wrap my head around. Well, it is mind-boggling at first. Think of the valley, Hector. Why is it so different? Why does the air, the earth, and everything feel off? So hostile? It's because it's the work of a different god, or a system, as you say, one that is incompatible with ours. Are demons the means through which these gods spread then? Sometimes yes. It depends on the dark god, really. Some don't produce demons because they have a different way to spread. Even in a sea of abnormality, Vernai's dark god is an odd one. Demons infested the Eye Valley once, yet they never went out of it, only reacting to trespassers. Maybe Vernai's dark god just wants to be left alone. Or maybe it's just a lazy god. The old man cackles and takes another gulp of water. I'm rubbing my chin, mulling over their words. If I understand this right, this dark god that you speak about is still in the valley? Yes, right beneath our feet. And it's imperative that its slumber remained uninterrupted. The valley, its opulent bed, must not be disturbed. The Duke's so-called expeditions endanger us all. Is Manuel aware? What about the Inquisition? They must know. Of course they know. How could they not? With all the legends. The Inquisition thinks the Dark God has faded away along with the demons. But they're nothing more than the Blood Knights. Take away their pristine armor and all that's left is filth and shit, dregs of men. All they can do is mince demons into pieces. They couldn't detect a Dark God if it stuck a tendril up their asses. And Manuel is mad. He doesn't care if his ambition puts him and everyone else in peril. If he found his coveted evidence of the demons sabotaging his expedition, the situation would only become more dire. We'd be looking at an army marching into the Eye Valley, disturbing it further. You taught me an invaluable secret tonight, Badger, an antidote to Dusk Viper venom. Even if it is imperfect, it's no small thing. Yet this secret is greater still. I speak of it only because my son has placed his utmost trust in you. That is all I know. Dinner is over. After Cadgan collects the dishes, Eirnin gets up, snapping a dozen bones back in place, and prepares his pipe. Are you going back to town, my son? I planned on staying, actually. I recall that we were supposed to assess the stars, and I thought tonight would be appropriate. But that was before Hector told me that he meant to visit. I should escort him back to town. If it is all right, we could do it another night. No, you don't have to do that. The path was clear. I can make it back on my own. Are you sure? It's fine. You don't have to worry about me. I'm a resourceful badger. That you are indeed. Still, I can at least accompany you part of the way. The forest is tricky at night, and I know your eyes aren't as good as your nose. Not to mention who knows what lurks out there at night. You drive a hard bargain. If I have no other choice... All right, Dad, I'll be back shortly. You can go ahead and bring out the star maps. Yes, take care on the way back, Hector. Don't get kidnapped, Likewise, it can't be safe living out here alone. What do you mean? It's not so bad. Outside, I glance at the shrine one last time. I can hear Eirnin closing the windows. It all looks like a cold and lonely place. As I turn to look ahead, I catch, just a foot from me, the two wolf statues. From this angle, I see there is a third one behind them. It's a badger, and one carved in a far rougher style. He's smaller too, about half as tall as the wolves, and plump. He's stretching out his arms, waiting for a hug that never came. But Cadgan continues onward. I follow closely behind as to not trip on anything. A part of me wants to ask about the statues, but another is afraid of the answer. I settle on the easier questions. Cadgan? Yes, Hector? Why does Eirnin live here? I mean, at his age, it's concerning for him to live alone, so far away from everybody, and I can't imagine that shrine is very homely during winter. It was very cozy when it was just the two of us, but yes, I imagine it's much rougher now. Cadgan slows down enough to walk by my side. Remember him complaining about people visiting over trivialities? They do it on purpose to check on him. Well, I'll need to look into that angry man that he said visited. I'd like that not to repeat. Have you tried convincing him to move to town? I have, but it was useless. There's just so much bitterness. I'd seen it as soon as Eirnin began talking about the townspeople. Whether they worry for him or not, the old priest wants a little to do with them. It's enough hatred for two people. I hope I'm not being nosy, but did something happen between Eirnin and the town? Under the faint moonlight, I catch a glimpse of Cadgan's ears flickering and his lips parting, forming words that never come out. Leopoldino banished him to the forest a decade ago. It was because he tried to rescue me when he took me to his mansion. Oh. Of course, he was only one man. It would not end well, but he tried. And I think that, to this day, he is still angry that nobody else tried with him. The wolf shakes his head. Knowing him, he must be asking himself why they are trying to help him now when they couldn't do the same for me. Cadgan, what about you? He does not answer immediately. I cannot see his eyes or his face, but I count 3, 4, 5 steps before his lips part. I've made peace with what happened. Besides, it wasn't that bad once you entered the picture. I smile weakly at the second part, if only the first wasn't so hard to accept. Does Eirnin feel the same way, under the hateful visage? If so, I can't blame him. Eirnin still hasn't let go. He could return now that Leopoldino is gone, but he doesn't want to. It's a difficult situation. He told me that he was your midwife, and much more. He worked with my parents back at the big shrine, back in town, and taught me a few things. So that's why he took you in as an apprentice? I never noticed you descended from a line of priests. The wolf looks up at the palm of his hand. It's a shame it didn't work out. I just didn't have the talent to use magic the way that he or my parents did. I can't do more than basic sigils. That and the priest's duties shrunk when Leopoldino began selling his earth helpers. He figured that it would be best for me to figure something else to do with my life. I remember Oblon's shamans objecting to buying the earth helpers, saying that they didn't trust them with protecting the crops. I think that they just didn't want to be replaced, but we didn't have a choice. It feels like those things just made everything worse, but everybody's using them, so it's hard to make a living out of agriculture without them. And replacing the copper parts costs a fortune in the long run. God, yes. Then from behind the trees, the lights of Renai appear. I keep walking, but Cadgan's footsteps go silent. I turn back. The wolf is still looking down at his hands. His fingers move in rough, sudden jerks. It takes me a second to understand. He's trying to touch his fingers with his thumbs and failing horribly. Is everything all right? He looks up from his fingers. His eyes shine, reflecting all of Renai's fire back at me. There's a dream that I have every once in a while. One where Mom and Dad never went away, and I was never taken to the mansion. Eirnin is there too. I live in the town shrine. He's teaching me the old ways. I know how to use magic. My hands work. I blink. How did the topic change so quickly? But I can't help but follow along. Really? And what else? And you're there. You look a bit different. You're taller. But I know it's you. No matter how the details change between dreams, I can always tell that it's you. Sometimes, we've known each other for years. You have the exact belt buckle. You've been visiting for most of your life. The blacksmith is with you often. Sometimes I see you, as if it was for the first time, coming in through the shrine's sunlit door. It's dark inside and I can barely see your face. But I know. I just know. Cadgan. You're always so serious, but we still behave like rascals at times. We're going on adventures, playing pranks. I laugh. I feel a burst of warmth in my chest when we walk together. We like to wrestle. I play my pranks on you often, and you want more. Sometimes, by the river, we undress and... He stares at the palm of his hand before clutching it into a fist. And... He looks up at me. There's been times when I'm looking at you. I remember all that, and it makes me want to cry. But I can't. All I feel is a mist in my eyes, and I can't. Alongside those words comes out a sniff. Not from him. It's me that's starting to tear up. Why? I keep thinking about how different everything could have been, but that's just not me. That is another Cadgan, one that still remembers what it's like to feel warm inside. What if one day I held you, just like I've dreamt, but felt nothing? If I throw myself at him, wrapping the wolf up in a tight embrace. Cadgan raises his arms in shock, but stays still as the silence of the night envelops us. In that beautiful dark, surrounded by the woods and so distant from Renai's flames, his arms pull me close, his claws dig into my clothes, down to my fur and skin. It does not hurt. By God, it could never hurt. And there, in his chest, I feel an incredible, burning warmth, more passionate than the festival's flames. I don't know what changed, Cadgan, but it's all right. You're still Cadgan. My Cadgan. Please. But is he feeling the same thing as you, Hector? Look up to his eyes. Is he in the same bliss, or are they wide open in horror at what he's become? But I'm too afraid to look, too used to every bit of good in the world being snuffed out. If I do it, I might lose this moment too. I wish that we could stay like this forever. And that's when I feel Catgan's snout on top of my head. His chest deflates under my embrace. He breathes out, and I hear a sniffle as his rough, knuckled fingers curl tighter on my clothes. God, his chest. Never have I felt such warmth. But it cannot last forever. No matter how much I pray and beg God, his fingers let go of me, his arms lower, and so must mine. We disentangle, take a step back, and it's as if the moment of magic lives on only in memory. In all the darkness, I cannot see his face anymore. Good night, Hector. Thank you. Good night, Catgan. Stay safe out there. You too. He turns around and makes his way to the shrine. I stand there for a moment before I walk off, not to Arwell's nest, but to the forest, to the river. I recall the demon's message, "Tonight, Badger." Did I make the right choice? Just as things are getting better with Catgan, now the demon. What do I do? Act 2, Chapter 4, Consummation. The stars fall and fall, slipping from between the fingers, rejoining the stream below. I hold them in my cupped hands and splash the starry sky all over my face. This river is one of few things that have changed little in these 9 years. Back then the water reached my navel, and that's all. It's a familiar, relaxing place. I pick up another handful and throw it under my armpit. I scrub and scrub before reaching underwater and wriggling my fingers between my thighs, behind my balls. A shiver goes up my spine. It's not out of excitement, but because of the breeze making the humidity all over my fur rigid. This isn't as easy as the demon is made it out to be. I catch my hands lingering around where Catgan hugged me. It was nice, but filled with so much uncertainty. Even if Catgan was to completely turn around, could he give me the companionship and love that I want? He himself doesn't seem sure about that. If only I could know it for certain, the choice would be so much easier. That's not how life works, dude. And runs Kai. He is an evil spirit, yes, and he must be manipulating me, duh. But he can give me what I need. He can make all the pain and loneliness go away. I look at my shadow in the water, thinking how selfish this all is, yeah? It's true. You're a selfish and self-centered brat, playing around with a demonic entity beyond your understanding. You'll burn, Hector. Probably. Shut it. Don't get me started again. Catgan is not some object without emotions and needs of his own. I met his adoptive father. I saw how he lived. More than ever, I should know better than to think of him without compassion. But it is the truth. I am alone, desperate, and broken, and horny. I need someone. Anyone. Once upon a time, Catgan filled this gap in me. Now it's run Sky. That's all. That's all. Really. After a few more minutes, I figure it's enough, and return to the riverbank. First, I look at my clothes on the ground before raising my gaze to the forest. I could dry up using a bush, as usual, but I have another idea. I grab a thin branch and snap it before looking for a grassless spot of dirt. Let's see. That rune Catgan drew looked like this. I tilt my head, squinting at the rune. The circle part doesn't look too good. I kick some more dirt on top of it before trying again, hurriedly along by the gentle but unrelenting wind. Not perfect, but it's close enough. All it needs is some magic now. I toss the stick aside and crouch, resting my hands on the circle. The tip of my fingers glow and the circle, then the sigil, fills with an orange light. But something's different. Little by little, the warmth turns into an almost searing heat. I instinctively move my hand away, expecting the rune to loosen its magic, but it keeps glowing, though slowly losing heat. Strange. It's my first time casting this rune. I don't even perfectly replicate it, and I only poured a drop of magic into it, and yet the effect is overwhelming. When Catgan used it, he had to be in constant contact with it too, and it didn't become nearly this hot. Why is it working differently? He mentioned lacking magic talent. Maybe that's the explanation, having more limited skills, This simple rune demanded a far greater focus to cast, only to display weaker results. But then I recall his twitching thumb, trying to reach the tip of his fingers. This isn't the first time that you've seen it, Hector. Back in Oblin, when Mr. Edgar injured his hands in that woodcutting accident, remember? He couldn't hold a plow afterwards, and neither could he cast magic, not even to light up a persmillion. It was one of the first lessons Dad taught you. See that no harm comes to your hands, for they are your greatest tool. The issue wasn't the rune being misshapen. It had to be his. The thought is cut short by a sharp breeze. Huddling up, I sit up on top of the rune and the warmth flows into me. It's not searing me anymore, now that I'm not pouring more energy into it. A ripple goes through my body, ending it in a blissful sigh. It feels so good. I continue rubbing my arms and body, squeezing the humidity off my fur, where it remains as slowly but surely dried by the rune. Well, well, you just couldn't wait, could you? As though I just noticed a spider crawling on my back, my entire body tenses up at once, and a gasp jumped out of my throat. I turn around, searching for red and purple in the darkness. The demon is leaning against a tree, arms crossed, with a lecherous look in his eyes. He's enjoying the view, taking every detail in, as his loincloth is strained, trying to contain his excitement. No doubt he's been there for much longer than I imagined. Runsky. Today I was thinking, what would you do once we met tonight, knowing full well what's to come? To be honest, I thought that you kept playing the part of a scared animal. But to think that you'd seek me in the woods, that you'd prepare yourself for our deal's consummation. He steps closer, a wild smile spreading across his face. I'm paralyzed, 1,000 ideas running through my mind about what he's about to do to me. His razor-sharp claws reach out to me and latch around my nape. As he strokes my head with such strength, he forces me to look at his hooves. Such an obedient little morsel. I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. I could partake in you right in here and now. But... He looks around us and shakes his head. No, this will not do. No? Why not? I hope that didn't come out as desperate as I think it did. It did. This is a special occasion, Badger, and we need an adequate site. Lovers embracing by the river, entrusting themselves to the other for the first time, with only the moon as witness. Maybe that'd be fitting for most couples, but not for us. He owns me now, and he wants me to drive that point home. The demon backs away and with a playful grin, picks up my clothes. Hey! Come along now, Hector. I know just the place. It's just down the river. I chase after the demon, doing my best to avoid the occasional pebble on the riverbank. It's almost funny. I never have expected my return to Ranai to take such an absurd direction. Yet here I am. Running naked in the middle of the woods, the torn-up grass left behind in my wake, the wind between my ears. It's almost enough to make one feel young again. Though I'm quickly losing sight of Runsky. Wait! I search for his glow in the dark, but to no avail. My jogs slow down to a wary steps as I walk up to a large lake, the river's source, apparently. And besides the river, dilapidated yet still standing tall, is a ruin. It's nothing like the ones that I've seen so far, a collection of mounds and towering stones closing inwards as though grasping for the lake. As I get closer, I see a series of rectangular stones lined up in front of the large structures, as though to complete the circle. Rain has worn their corners and edges down. Some are chipped, a few outright broken. Judging by the height, these are seats. This must be an amphitheater, built by the same people who left the ruins in the valley. Not much grass is growing around here. Either somebody takes care of this place, or it gets visitors every once in a while. Runsky must be nearby. I smell him. Hello? Beyond the amphitheater, there is only endless darkness. My gaze returns to the stones, and out of the corner of my eye, I catch a pink glow. My first thought is that it's the demon, but no. There is a single glowing sigil in the far end of the pillar. Little by little, the glow spreads as more runes appear on it before it spreads to the others. and then the devil of Renai finally appears before me. Welcome, Badger, to one of Renai's many holy sites. Holy? Indeed. Long time ago, this was a place for our worlds to meet. Your nature. He points to me with an exaggerated gesture, and then slowly at his own chest. And my eye. You mean the pages upon pages of demons and mortals, with their arms, legs, and tongues intertwined in an unholy union of what is meant to be and what is not. I wonder if they were all as foolish as me, so desperate for warmth that they'd accept it from even a demon. But there is not enough love going around on this earth, is there? If life throws you down unlovable and deathly paths, if it pushes you to the brink of despair, was there really an alternative? This is the world that we live in, the one that took Dad away and kept Cadgan and I apart for 9 years. Curse it and its cruelty. I am a man, and I have a heart. It cannot be that I was born only to suffer, grieve, and be a tool for the sake of others. Maybe they saw it too. Those people in the book must have reached the same conclusion and forsaken it as well. No, you're just trying to justify your terrible decision, Hector. Surely you caught a hint of it when you were snooping around? Which reminds me, did you enjoy my art? In the blink of an eye, Runsky, the sly shadow that he is, slips behind my back. I feel his hands on my belly, and my mind goes blank as his loincloth presses against my tail. How about a reenactment? Softly, he plants a kiss on my back, firing shivers all over my body. I instinctively try to move away, but he holds me in place, and I'm nothing but grateful for that. God, something that feels so right cannot possibly be wrong. His claws subtly digging into my side to make me squirm. Each kiss sets my nerves ablaze. His affection chips away at my barriers, reshaping me. Skittish, aren't you? From those words alone, I can hear the smile on his lips. Amidst the burning desire, there is something almost playful in him. I'm not used to this. It's not just his claws. Even his fingertips feel like daggers on my naked belly and sides, regardless of my desires. After idling for a moment, the demon chuckles and his grasp becomes loose. That is all right. We'll get you used to this in no time. But for now, why don't we discuss our contract? Contract? Didn't I already accept your deal? I could do as I like with your soul now, mortal. But where's the fun in that? Despite all my banter, I find thralls to be rather dull as toys. I have a plan to spice up things for the both of us instead. The mural glows, reacting to the demon's words as though an imperceptible stenographer is writing them down. With a last caress to my cheek, Runsky walks towards the ruin and faces me. He looks like the villain in a play. The deal grants you 3 rights, but first, let's talk about your safe word. Safe word? You mean the fading spell? Yes, that is the magic known as a safe word, Hector, and it can take many other shapes in case the caster can't speak to. 3 taps in the shoulder, for instance. Whatever we agree upon. Which brings us to your first right, the concubine. That is you, can initiate negotiations regarding the safe word's activation. In such an event, an agreement must be reached before an act of sexual nature may take place. It's strictly forbidden for the concubine to deliberately bring harm upon the keeper. That is me, using the safe word. So, let's say for instance, that I gag you with my loincloth, or that I'm sitting on your face, covering your snout with my scent. Of course, if you do that, I could tap you 3 times to make you stop. Exactly. Let's negotiate after we go over your other rights. He clears his throat. Second, the keeper shall not bring non-consensual harm upon the concubine. If I am to bite you, claw you up, or whip you until it draws blood, I need your explicit permission. And you must have the courage, or the desperate burning desire, to bring forth the idea first. That I don't think I'm ready for any of that. Aren't you lucky? A crueler demon would carve you into a meatball on a whim, then heal you to do it all over again. Third, the keeper has a responsibility to keep the concubine safe in the event that he trespasses into the Eye Valley. The concubine must obey the keeper's command in such situations. Just out of curiosity, what happens if I don't? I cannot guarantee your safety if you deliberately disobey me. Whatever happens, it'll be your responsibility. Does he realize what he is saying? No, he most certainly does. About my first right, there's nearly no restriction on what situations I can use a safe word in. If I wish to, I could forbid him from touching a single hair on me. Even now, he's offering me a choice. And he knows that I'll play right into his hands. Are you sure that you want this, Hector? You can still back out. Think about Catgan. The deeper you go, the larger the wedge the demon drives between you. What wedge? Come on, weren't you one telling me to forget about him? That I'd find him with horror in his eyes when we hugged? You're the one trying to starve my soul. You won't ever let me enjoy life or love anyone until I work myself to an early grave. You'll never be satisfied. Listen to me, damn it. How would Cadgan feel if he learned that you've been laying with a monster? That you'd sold your soul away? What would Dad think? He's a demon, an affront to nature and an insult to God. He's all I have. Even Cadgan, even if we had a moment tonight, I can't be sure where it would go. Not even he can tell. Stop using Cadgan to confuse me. And Dad, he doesn't think about anything anymore. Let him be. I'm pulled out of my skull by the sound of the demon's chuckle. His smile has gained an impish edge. Not taking his eyes off of me for a moment, he undoes his belt and loincloth, tossing them aside. The rest of his attire follows soon after. Well now, let me introduce you to this land's old customs. I open my mouth, but all I can produce is an almost inaudible whimper. The devil notices my trepidation, and so he starts with a simple, almost innocent gesture, taking my hand, firmly, yet so tenderly. He places it on his shoulder, and looks me in the eye, hungry and reassuring. Everything that ails me, he will devour, but he won't stop there, won't he? Not until he has consumed all of me. His warmth spreads from the palm of my hand through my entire body, cleansing me from my doubts and shielding me from the cold that has stalked me since my return. And then it crosses my mind. If I could throw myself at this fire, let it turn me into embers. That feels so right. The smell of blooming flowers washes over my nerves, calming them down with his sweet touch, though not completely. There's nothing ominous about the spirit grinning down at me. This warmth, the scent of 1,000 springs, the way his fingers caress me, it feels right and sacred. Ready? His tone carries a warning. There's no coming back from this. Renai exhales, rustling the top of the trees. Runskai exhales, resting his head on the nook of my neck, squeezing me tight against his chest. I lie there with Runskai, I don't know for how long, hearing his and Renai's breath, feeling the blood pump into his heart and the veins and arteries under the earth. The last thing that I remember is turning around to meet the demon's eyes and his breath on my nose. The desire in them was like a bottomless pit, his lips parted so slightly with temptation, and yet... So, obviously, you didn't get to see a lot of that, because if I showed it to you, YouTube would kill me. So, suffice it to say, you probably should be able to gander as to what happened between them. It was very graphic. It made me feel very uncomfortable as somebody that is, like, like Gray Ace, this was very uncomfortable to read. Like I read it, but you're not gonna see it. Um, I did not enjoy that. I did not have a great time actually. Uh, mm, I mean, you can see right here if you join their Patreon, you'll get all that other stuff. Whatever. Um, I sincerely hope that they're not gonna make they're not gonna keep doing this. Uh, One of the lines that Hector says while they're about to do it, well, they're not even about to do it, they're doing it, is that if he allows himself to be fully taken by Runsky, meaning, just go for it and just throw inhibition out the window, is that it seems like Runsky is purposefully driving a wedge between him and Cadgan. Like, Hector acknowledges that in allowing himself to be fully taken by Runsky, that the wedge grows even deeper between Cadgan and Hector. But the funny thing is, and I'm pretty sure this is the part that I'm not going to cut out, where he's trying to justify what he's about to do, is that technically speaking, he is right. Cadgan literally just had a moment with Hector. He literally had the moment that Hector wanted and that Cadgan was so afraid to experience because he didn't know if it was going to be a good thing or a bad thing. And Hector just decided to throw that out the window. Literally what Hector wanted was right there. It is blossoming possibly within Cadgan. But no, he's horny that moment and he's going to just say fuck it and I'm gonna, well, fuck the demon. Hector is his own worst enemy, basically. I really, really, really cannot wait for that moment where he has a sudden where something happens and he has that realization where it's like, oh, I fucked up. I fucked up badly. What I really wanted, which was Cadgan, I can no longer have because I decided to just go for evil wolf dude, evil demon wolf. Not only that, but remember how in the previous videos, I made the distinction in which I basically compared Runsky to the Dusk Viper? That basically he is a snake and he is using his venom to basically, I wouldn't say taint, but basically to drive the wedge between these two guys. The good wolf, Cadgan, and the idiot Hector. And then again, the distinction was made that basically Runsky is a snake. He is using his venom from his literally pointy fangs in his mouth to do exactly what I said, which was to drive the wedge between these two for whatever his purpose is. Hector, you dumb fuck. I really dislike Hector. I do not dislike the story, but I really dislike Hector. Like I would want to slap him right now. But that probably wouldn't, be enough. He'd be like, but I'm so lonely. I'm horny. Who's going to sleep with me? And if you, my followers, my viewers, relate to Hector right now, you guys have some real soul searching to do, because that is not a normal thing to do, okay? I'm not even talking about the demon thing. I'm just saying, like, come on, guys. You can do so much better. You don't need to stoop to selling your soul, metaphorically speaking, to get love and acceptance and to get your rocks off with someone. Anyways, so what did you think? Write it down in the comments. Tell me again how you guys all like Run Sky, how you would all throw yourself at his feet. Ugh. And thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Devil's Gambit yourself, you can do so by going down into the link in the description, which should have a direct link for their Twitter and their Blue Sky page, which Blue Sky is now public, so you can actually access that now and use it if you want. And those should have direct links to the itch.io page, which, where you can download it from there. And obviously I can't link to this one because, my God, that was graphic. But it wasn't even that graphic, it was descriptive. Painfully descriptive. For somebody that is identifying as basically gray ace, this was... Ugh. Anyways, they do have a Patreon, as you obviously saw. You get early access to builds of Devil's Gambit, and then you get to see the works in progress and all that other good stuff. They also have a Discord, so you can discuss how you love Run Sky, and how you would submit to him and blah blah blah. I'm sorry, but if you, I'm serious, if you relate to Hector this badly, that you would basically do what he is doing right now, then I have lost all respect for you people. And there was some people, maybe 3, 4, that said that they would. So bad followers. Anyways. Also, I have a throne, coffee, all that other stuff. Links in the description. And I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.